I remember everything beginning when I left Big Hans up on the lift table. I had decided to take the first warm day of the new year, which wound up being sometime early in February, I believe, of 2025 this year. And I replaced the worn brake pads. And while I was at it, I replaced the .4 fluid in the clutch and the master cylinders, and was feeling pretty sexy about myself, and thought, well, nice days are coming, let's leave it up on the lift a few days, and as the weather comes and goes with warmth or not, and get Big Hans ready for that imminent riding season. So I left Big Hans up on the lift table and was in and out of the garage over the next couple of days, waiting on warm weather, which didn't manifest. So I took a couple of days and went to a place with warmer weather and stayed there and ate some fresh seafood. And I had a restorative time. I felt better about everything in general. The spring was indeed coming, and I'd just gotten a taste of it. So I get home from a little vacation in a Florida room and walk into the garage and flip on the lights and notice something has definitely changed. Big Hans is different. Really different. Big Hans, I'm going to try to make that the last time I dead name, was really different. The bike formerly known as Big Hans was now white and sporting some drag bars, lost their number plates, gotten a graphics treatment on the side covers and the tank and the headlight cover grill. And with all this stunning visual change, taped to the seat was a note that said Big Hans, formerly known as, had transitioned and now wants to be Japanne. Japanne. I never saw it coming. There were bits and pieces of things that may have been clues. I kept finding CDs. I didn't remember leaving where I found the Best of Hiroshima CD. I thought I'd lost this 20 years ago, a Vapors CD. I found some notes downloaded, I guess, from the interwebs on a guy named Soichiro something, and some illustrations about graphics representing old Nippon culture. I don't know, a lot of disparate things going on. I also found some paint cans of cherry red and antique white and a Duplicolor 1K super glossy or extra glossy, whatever it was. I didn't remember buying any of that stuff, but anyway, it was laying around the shop, and so the signs were there. But I got to tell you, Japanne is inscrutable. Well, looking at Japanne, I really had zero problem with the transition and the desire for a new ID, a new brand maybe. As long as Japanne did what I bought the old one to do, I'm great. Zero problem. Brighter, lighter, leaner, more effervescent than your first taste of 7-Up. Japanne flaunts a new level hip Asia funk that is in your face. Yeah, that's it. That's what happened. Now I gotta admit, that whole story I just told you was, except for the part about the brake pads, entirely fabricated. It's only true if you are a Bezostronaut. Then you might believe it. Otherwise, it was crap. I just contrived all of that to get you to a place where I could explain to you why things had to change with Big Hans. Big Hans was black. I've had a lot of motorcycles over a lot of decades of motorcycling, and I've never, until I was fortunate enough to acquire Big Hans, a very good bike, a very good and black bike, that I realized that had to change. It took about 17 months to get to the point where I'm pretty happy with Japanne, and it all grows out of my disdain for black motorcycles. Some of the prettiest motorcycles I've ever seen have been Simonized and murdered out, and whatever it is they do to them to make them look like your mother would say, "You go ahead and eat off that. That's very clean. You eat your egg right off that gas tank, young man." And you would say, "Yes, Mom, because that bike is indeed maybe the cleanest thing you've ever seen." But the thing is, for me, as fine as it is, the bike is black. And I don't know if it's the whole skulls and death heads and flaming demons you see associated with all that dark black stuff. And I'm not sure that it's something those of us who pursue a hobby that is as express line connected to dire possibilities, I'm not sure we should put those symbols out there like that. I'm not comfortable with it, but I'm kind of a girl, so. Am I happy I did it? Yeah, of course I am. And Big Hans came to me in its black bomber CB 1100 chonky massiveness that was all but the blackness of it approved. Things had to change. So what appealed to me in a motorcycle, and it's probably fad and fashion, probably more fad than fashion, is the cafe racer. The fact that these guys would get on a motorcycle, a British motorcycle of the 50s or 60s, and race between cafes, endeavoring to achieve 100 miles per hour and reach their destination before the song on the jukebox at whatever cafe ended. The things they did to strip those bikes down to make them look racier than they probably really were appealed to me, and I guess maybe it's become a design school, I don't know, but I like the look of it, and that was my goal for Big Hans in becoming Japanne. Big Hans needed to be lighter, both on the scales and in complexion, and Big Hans needed some minor design cues that would be minimal but pleasing to my eye, because I'm doing it. So the plan in changing Big Hans into Japanne was to keep the bike as original as it was when it came to me, with the exception of, I think I've cut 6 wires, the wiring harness for the 2 rear turn signals and the tail light. When I took that rear fender and all that busyness off there, I cut those wires and rewired the lights back into them after I lost some of that mass. And you'll see it. I'll throw up somewhere a before picture and an after. The Cafe Racer inspired theme was to lose some bulkiness, some chonkiness, minimal fenders, if any. Trying to clean up the lines around the handlebars. I wound up with these drag bars when I realized that the cafe bars that I bought just weren't going to last more than 15 minutes on the road as far as me being comfortable. The Sebring seat was a find. I was really dreading trying to mold a seat, but I found that, and then my problem was, because the goal was to originally be able to return the bike to its original state if somebody wanted to do that, I was going to learn to wrap. No, not next day's function, high-class luncheon, food is served and you're stone cold munching. Not that kind of wrap, vinyl wrap. You'll see, I'll show you some examples of me being ashamed of my work here at some point through this whole thing. But I just said, you know what, for me, for now, I'm 71 years old. How many countless hours do I want to devote to learning to wrap, vinyl wrap? And I decided none further. So I unwrapped and got out of the wrapping business. And I got into the rattle can business and decided this is what I want. Somebody wants it back original. I've researched this. The stripes are available online, and I know where to get black paint. Japanne has a couple of graphics on it. Some meatball, we call them meatballs in the Navy. I guess that's an archaic term, but it's the red round symbol in the middle of a Japanese white field for its national colors. Beautiful, simple, has significance. And I took it and moved it around on the frame a little bit. I brought some images up in Photoshop I had put together, and I thought that's kind of cool, that red ball sitting in the middle of that white tank. But that tank is so stark, and what if I break the rules on maybe that flag is draped across the tank in a different way? So I moved the red balls around on the side panels and on the tank, and I'm really pleased with the dare I say, Dali-esque way the circle drapes across the contours of the tank. I don't mean hello, Dolly, I mean Salvador Dali. Was I successful? I think so. There were some compromises made. I wound up painting the bike, and if you look too close, which is not very close at all, you'll realize that Mike is not a painter, but I'm pleased with it. I feel like this was a successful endeavor, and have I convinced myself of that? Well, here's how I know. Japanne has passed the test. When I ride in to the garage, turn Japanne off and put the kickstand down, I walk across the garage and I look back over my shoulder at Japanne and I grin. That's how I know I was successful. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. How would you have done some things different? How would you have done everything different? Would you have started in a different place? Would you have used a different fabricator and painter? Let me know. I appreciate you. I'll see you again soon.